Hello. Today I will be doing another lower tier guide. This time I'm taking on the Tenryu. I figured the Tenryu would be a good example because the Kuma plays very similarly to the Tenryu. Basically, they are both very similar in design and playstyle. They both have the same weaknesses and pretty much the same strengths. The Kuma is just overall better with a higher HP pool and such. So I figured the Tenryu would be a good ship to make a commentary about. First of all, the Tenryu, it doesn't have a lot of guns, but they hit fairly hard for its tier. The citadels do 2.7k damage, and the HE shells I think was at 1.8 or something, so pretty meaty shots. But more importantly, it has very good torpedoes, or well, for its tier, because very few ships at T3 have torps. Besides, I don't think, does any ship besides DDs even have torps at T3? I don't think so. And it's not until T4 when you start having Phoenix and Kuma as well, of course, that have torps. So the strength is that it's one of the first cruisers with torpedoes, and a lot of people don't really know how to play it or how to make use of them. First of all, supporting your DDs is definitively something I highly recommend in both the Kuma and the Tenryu. They have fairly low detection range, meaning you can abuse your stealth to get fairly close and actually force the enemy DDs out. You see how DDs just turned away and fled as soon as they saw me supporting the DDs as well. You can basically help them win fights and help them capture points. Of course, with these strengths, it's fairly fast, it's got good concealment. But it has weaknesses as well. HP pool is very limited. The citadel, basically the entire area underneath the smokestacks, is one big citadel. The armor is very thin, and well, of course, the HP pool is one of the most obvious things. If we compare it to St. Louis, who has almost 30k HP, you have 17.7, so you have half the HP of a St. Louis and significantly less firepower. So you're trading a lot of HP and a lot of armor and a lot of firepower just to be able to torp and be agile and have a slightly better stealth. So this obviously makes the ship quite hard to play because you have to consistently keep an eye out on any possible threats and showing broadside. Here don't have any fear showing broadside because no one is really aiming at me. But you can still see that I'm constantly making small adjustments. You see how I'm pressing Q and E and Q and E. But I'm making sure that I'm not an easy target to hit. This ship has good turret traverse and it has good maneuverability. So you have to make use of these to minimize the damage you take. I'm taking one shell every now and then, but I'm not taking these full salvos. For example, St. Louis in my case would be eating all these shells from the Svetlana, but I'm able to avoid the majority of them. I'm using AP here to see what kind of damage I could do to a Svetlana. I wasn't very impressed, so I'm switching to HE now, especially since his engine is broken and he's not repairing, which means he doesn't have his repair ready, which means fires are very deadly right now. But in general, you need, I think the Kuma is actually the Tenryu is one of the first cruisers that really force you to have very good situational awareness. It forces you to keep an eye out on your surroundings, and for the US cruisers it doesn't happen until you get to the Phoenix, but for the Japanese cruisers it happens at the Tenryu already, and the Tenryu is probably one of the most punishing ships in that case. There are probably so many people who have absolutely deleted these Tenryu type ships with ridiculous ease, and that's because they are surprisingly punishing for a T3 ship. They are certainly not easy to play compared to something like the St. Louis. The St. Louis is very easy, it's hard to citadel, it's very tanky, it's got guns all over, it's slow and so forth. It's a very straightforward ship, whereas the Tenryu in comparison requires deft hands, I would say. In this case, of course, there's the strength that not many expect or even know that you have torps at this tier. And even if they know, it still tends to catch them by surprise. In this case, of course, I launch my volley at the St. Louis and then I keep kiting him. I don't really want to get too close to him. In this case, I'm pretty much just baiting him into my torps. Just keeping a straight course, which is something you will see quite often in low tiers. People don't maneuver as much as they do. Okay, well, lately, or well, in the last couple of months, high tier has also the quality has dropped quite a bit, so you kind of see people sailing in straight lines there as well. But in general, in low tier, people don't maneuver and don't change course as often as they should, which means anything with torps is a significant strength. You see how short the cooldown on my torps is? I just used them, but they're already up again. So naturally I'm gonna go for this Ishi Sushi. Usually I would recommend saving the torps a bit longer, like waiting until you're closer to use them to ensure that you can get hits. But the Ishi Sushi is moving very slowly, and it doesn't have that great of maneuverability to begin with. I played the ship quite a bit, so I knew that there was little risk of him being able to actually dodge those torps. So that's 3 kills secured, and that's this cap secured. You might have seen the course I took. First I sailed up to B to support my deities to help capture B, and then I sailed down to C. Most of the time I made sure to keep rock formations between me and all the big battleships up north, so that the rocks at B were covering me, and when they weren't covering me I was angled, basically sailing southward, so I was angled at a away course from them. And that's very, very important. And okay, let's see, are these going for me? Doesn't look like it. You have very, very pitiful AA. I mean, you have some AA, which already sets you apart from most ships at T3, but it's quite pitiful, and you're not going to be any use as an anti-air ship. But torping you is very, very hard. You can see how slim of a profile the ship shows. Like it reminds you more of a DD than a cruiser. The ship profile, it's very long and slim, and that makes it, if someone is trying to torp you, you can just turn into the torpedoes, and you will have little issues slipping in between them, which is, of course, once again, one of the strengths of the ship, combined with the maneuverability. The bad part is, of course, if you do happen to hit a torp with 17.7k HP and no torpedo belt, torps absolutely murder you. They completely murder you. They are literally the worst thing that could happen to you, so you want to keep away from them. Especially in this case, I selected this game because I'm up against the T3s and T4s, so basically slightly up-tiered matchmaking, and something like an Isokaza torpedo is very, very nasty, so you want to really want to avoid those. But the good thing is, of course, you want to take the battle to the DDs, and that's what the Tenryu is very good at. The dispersion is quite good, so here I'm basically taking pot shots at DDs that are very far away, and I'm still able to land hits on them at 10 kilometers, which is not something many ships at this tier can actually claim, to be able to land hits on DDs at this range. Okay, that guy's dead. Not sure if I'm gonna get it. Nope, he turned and dodged. Oh, he slowed down. He's juking me. He got killed now. There's another DD in the cap though. A Wakatake. That's a T3 Japanese DD. Very good concealment, very good torps. All the Japanese DDs are very strong at this tier. Nice. One hit. You don't need, that's another thing, because the shells hit so hard, you don't actually need many hits on DDs to kill them. At close range you absolutely murder them because of how much damage your shells do. See, he disappeared in smoke, but I got a shot off while he was still targeted, and I managed to score a hit and kill him before he got away. Now I see that my friendly ship is being chased here, oh, he's being chased by an enemy Tenryu. There's Phoenix being chased by an enemy Tenryu. Now, these are the kind of angles you kind of enjoy on the Tenryu. Basically, I'm planning to ambush him with torpedoes, provided he turns. But the thing is, the torpedo angles aren't that good, so sometimes you might have to make decisions whether you actually want to go for the torp spread. I blocked him a bit because I didn't expect him to turn this way. Okay, you see he's got spot. He had 15k HP. That's one volley. That's 2 points. That's one citadel. That's 2.7k. Instead of even going for the torps here, I used the weakness I was talking about. That's 15k gone, and that's the last 16k gone. 6 citadels instantly destroyed the Tenryu. And that's the weakness you have to keep an eye out for. He went for the torpedoes, I went for the citadels. This is the kind of battle you often see repeating itself, especially when DDs fight other DDs. One DD goes for the guns, the other goes for the torpedoes. The DD that goes for the guns tend to consistently win the fight. Okay, he's not torping, there's no chance with my maneuverability. I can easily dodge these torps. This is a very hard cruiser to torp, if of course he's paying attention to the planes, which you always should be doing. If you notice how big my minimap on the bottom right is, you press the plus key on the numpad. I always recommend, the first thing I recommend to any new player in this game, like the very first thing I say, is press the plus key 3 times so you get the maxed sized minimap, and then start playing. Because if your minimap is small, it's hard to pay attention to all the things happening to it. So having a large minimap like I have here is something I greatly enjoy, because you should be constantly glancing at it, keeping an eye out on where enemy fleet movements, and most of all keeping an eye out on enemy planes, so you don't suddenly get surprised by them. Anyway, that's the weakness I was pointing out of the enemy Tenryu there. He thought he was going for the torpedoes and I went for the AP shells. And you saw how easily a citadel, you see 2.7k damage per shell, and that's something you can do to many low tier cruisers. You can do exactly what I did there. You can do it to Kumas, you can do it to Phoenixes, you can do it to Omahas, you can do it to Marbleheads, Murmansks. They all have the similar design of a very large citadel, thinly armored underneath the smokestacks. Tenryu can do it to them all, but of course when you go for it, there's always the weakness that he does the same thing to you. Because if he understands to use AP, your citadel is just as vulnerable. So it kind of becomes a bit of a game of a chicken. Like, if you want to use all your guns, then you have to give a ton of broadside. But if you give a ton of broadside, you also expose your citadel. Of course, other ships aren't as vulnerable to it as the Tenryu, but when you see this angle I'm using now, you can bring 2 to 3 guns to bear if you use this angle, and you will be quite hard to citadel. So sometimes it's better to simply use this angle when fighting other cruisers instead of going for the full broadside, simply to protect your own citadel, because you cannot take many. Well, 6 citadel hits. I think it takes a total of 7 to completely kill a Tenryu with these guns, so you gotta be very careful about showing it. Anyway, this sieve is just running away and the game ended. I managed to get my Kraken. I think I should get a nice chunk of XP. Was this my daily one? I don't know. But still, 3.7k at this tier is quite nice, and a very nice chunk of base XP considering I was mostly against T4s. Right, as usual, I will start with the modules. Now, I've unfortunately already unlocked the Furutaka and I've gotten around to selling it, so I have to go back to my Tenryu here. And it's pretty obvious that the hull upgrade is quite insignificant. It doesn't give you any armor bonus. It gives you, well, it gives you a chunk of HP, which is always nice, and it gives you some rudder shift, but it's not that big of a deal. So I definitely go for the range first and the hull second. Upgrade wise, if you can have any upgrade, then it's very straightforward. You only go for this main armaments mod. It's the single best first mod in the game. So very straightforward, you get this one. And I don't think there was much else to look at. In terms of captain perks, you can go for pretty much, well, you can go for this build, which is basically situation awareness, basics of survivability, expert marksman, and vigilance. But you might want to skip basics of survivability and just save the points so you can get concealment expert as soon as possible, because this will make your life significantly easier when you get to the higher tiers. And you don't have to wait until point 16 to get it, but you can instead get it at point 15. So this investment, basically getting basics of survivability, is a bit of an investment in making life easier on the way to high tiers, but not getting it is gonna make high tiers easier because you get this concealment expert faster. Of course, if you get the balloons, then you can just get it now and later respec to get concealment expert as soon as possible. The next step from here on these ships is definitively demolition expert, because you use HE a lot on Japanese cruisers, and then concealment expert. Now, I was actually noticed quite an interesting thing. Since when I was doing this, I happened to open the German tab, and I have this mod that shows upcoming ships as well. So it turns out both the König Albert and the Kaiser was in my client. So I actually haven't looked at these. This is the T3 German battleship, which is looking pretty goddamn sweet. It's got an interesting gun setup, but still, at T3 you'll be able to bring 4 guns to bear, and they're 305mm guns. That is pretty nuts. Oh, this is a premium, and then the Kaiser. Is this actually the upcoming ones, or is this premium? It must be the upcoming ones since there's upgrades. Oh, it's loading. Loading the model. Let's see if it finishes loading. Come on, Booga. You can do it. Wargaming doesn't like me loading this, clearly. Yeah, it didn't. It only wanted to show me the Kaiser. It didn't like loading the second one, it seems. Come on, baby. What does it want to load? The Scharnhorst? Okay, the Scharnhorst loads, which is a amazing looking ship. It's a really weird battleship though. It's T7, but it only has 283mm guns. This is a premium, unlike those other twos. And, well, it's obviously going to have very low or very fast reload because of the guns, because of the small caliber, but we'll see what the penetration is like. I think this will be more of a cruiser killer than anything. It's even got torpedoes as well. So this looks more like a cruiser killing battleship, because you're going to have a hard time penetrating anything with these guns unless they have some really stellinium shells in them that can pen anything. So I'm going to give one more attempt at loading the Kaiser. Nah, the Kaiser is refusing to load. Anyway, that was my Tenryu commentary with a bonus little teaser of the upcoming German battleships. I hope you enjoyed it and have a good day.